Starting on attack in alphabetical order with Ace, and his best map probably being Clubhouse. Now the reason it would be Clubhouse is because he has a ranged hard breach. This is very needed on certain walls like the bathroom wall from Jacuzzi and many other examples as well. Also, this is one of the very few maps where having a secondary hard breach like Hibana or Ace is always going to be needed, so Ace is just naturally pretty good on this map. Next is Ashe, and her best map in my opinion is going to be Coastline. She's really dominant on this map because she is a very run and gun type of operator, and Coastline is just whoever has the best gun skill wins. You don't really need a hard breacher, you don't really need a strategy going into Coastline, you just need to have good gun skill and be able to take space accordingly, and Ashe does this very well. That's what she's meant to do. She's meant to take space and take it very fast with her good gun skill, so naturally she's just going to be very good on Coastline. Blackbeard's best map is Consulate for the same reason that Amaru's best map is Consulate. There's a lot of windows that you can sit and rappel on to take free control of the site. Now there can also be an argument made for Bank with Blackbeard because of all the windows, but I think it's just better on Consulate in my opinion. Next is Blitz, and Blitz's best map that I could find for the ranked pool would probably be Oregon. There are certain pushes that you can do with Blitz that are actually pretty viable and even used by pros, the elbow rush with Blitz being a prime example on Oregon, but also he's really good for roam clearing. Let's say they're playing one of the first floor sites or the basement for example, you can go with a Blitz and a teammate behind you to completely roam clear the second floor, then the first floor, then do a last minute round rush with Blitz to further reinforce your push. This is actually a pretty good strategy that again I've seen pros use, so if you want to play Blitz and him actually be viable, I definitely recommend Oregon to be your map to try it out. Next is Brava, and Brava is a bit complicated because the more utility that the enemies bring, the more useful she is going to be. And the map with the most amount of utility would probably be Oregon and Skyscraper, but those two maps are really hard to drone. So it's very difficult to pick a map that Brava would be good on, but if I had to pick one, I would pick Villa. I think Villa is the perfect balance between a map where it's pretty easy to get the drone inside, but also there's a lot of utility that you can hack. People love to play Capcan, people love to play Malusi, people love to play Aruni on Villa, and there's still enough drone holes and places where you can drone to where she's still effective. Buck's best map, however, is going to be Cafe. Now, Cafe is a really good map for multi-level vertical play. What is multi-level vertical play? It's essentially where you use multiple floors that you play vert through instead of just playing vert through one floor like you would do in most other maps. Cafe has 3 floors as opposed to most other maps only having 2, meaning that you can play vertical on the 3rd floor and still shoot people on the 1st floor due to you being able to shoot through multiple floors because of Buck's ranged soft breach. So Buck is really good at not only this, but also because you can play underneath the 3rd floor objective with Buck and get a lot of value by playing under Cocktail, which is something that a lot of people do in the higher ranks and in pro play, and Buck is overall just pretty useful on Cafe. Next is Capitao, and in my opinion, the best map for Capitao is going to be Clubhouse. Clubhouse has a lot of positions where defenders will just sit and play their life, like Rafters, Top Red, many other examples that Capitao is very good at flushing them out of. So if you want to play Capitao, maybe use his hard breaching gadgets, maybe use his fire to flush out defenders. He's very good for this specifically on Clubhouse, but also he's very good for if you want to get smoke plants down. Clubhouse is actually not that bad of a map if you want to get the bomb down compared to other maps, and with Capitao he can make one-way smokes, which just makes it a lot easier for you to get the plant down, and it punches over aggressive defenders, which is something that's very common, especially in ranked right now. So that is why personally I think he's better on Clubhouse. If you want to say Border, however, for the exact same reasons, I could understand, and I think honestly he's really good on Border too. So either way, Capitao is good on those two maps specifically. Next is Dokkaebi, and her best map is probably going to be Bank. The reason that it's Bank is because Bank is a very large map. There's a lot of open space and a lot of potential for roamers, and Dokkaebi's main ability is a roam clearing device where she calls a phone and you can hear any defenders anywhere, so it's very good for roam clearing, especially on big maps, and Bank is a pretty big map. Also on Bank, there's a lot of people that play camera operators. You have tons of Echo players, tons of Valkyrie players, and tons of roamers, like I said, so Dokkaebi completely counters all of this, which is why I think it's her best map. Now, an argument could also be made for Theme Park, because again, it is a big map where there's a lot of camera operators, but I think people play camera operators more on Bank than they do on Theme Park, so that's why I put Bank as the #1 for Dokkaebi. Finka's best map, for the same reason that it's Ashe's best map, is Coastline. It's very run and gun heavy. You don't really need to use a lot of skill, and you can't really make any team coordinated pushes with Finka unless you're 5-stack, but again, this list is for solo queue ranked, so I think it's just going to have to be Coastline. Best map for Flores is going to be Oregon. The reason for this being is because there's a lot of Azami players and a lot of deployable shields on Oregon that are very hard to defend unless you have a mute on your team. For top floor, there's usually at least 2 to 3 deployable shield spots. For bottom floor, there's always a elbow shield that you can get rid of with a Flores device. This is one of the best maps for Azami as well, so playing Flores on this map is outstandingly viable, not only because you can destroy so much, but because Oregon is a very tight and compressed map, meaning that it doesn't take you going through 7 rooms to get your Flores drone where you need it to be because of that 8-second timer. You only really need to put it a few feet to get it where you need to go, which is really good for Flores, again, because of that timer. So that is why Oregon is the best map for Flores. Next is going to be Fuze, and I had a pretty difficult time discerning which map to pick, but I think Border is the best Fuze map. The reason for this being is because the only time that Fuze is actually useful is on a bottom floor site, and Border has the most bottom floor sites, having 3 first floor sites, so it just made sense to put him on here. Other than that, he's not super useful. Chalet could make sense because of the one Fuze spot that everyone's raving about on TikTok. Maybe Cafe, but really I think Border is just going to be your best bet if you want to play Fuze. Also, you don't really need to roam clear on Border as much because it's such a tight map, meaning that you can actually get more out of Fuze every single round than you would on any other map, so I think Border is just the best map for him. Glaz I'm going to put on Coastline. There really isn't a single map where you can't sit outside the objective on Glaz and just snipe people from, which is really powerful on Coastline because all of the windows in sight have a direct line of sight access into the rotate between the 2 sites, meaning if you literally just sit on or near the window, you can completely cut off the site and make it to where people can't rotate on defense in between the sites. So Glaz is actually pretty powerful here, especially if you want to go for smoke plants. You can do it pretty easily paired up with a Capitao or a Ying, or you can bring his frag grenades to get rid of any deployable shields that might be on the site where you don't have frag grenades on other teammates. So I think Glaz is actually pretty good on Coastline. Border could be his second best map just because of the smoke execution on the top floor, but that's really only for the top floor, right? So I think the best map is going to be Coastline. Gridlock's best map, in my opinion, is Cafe. The whole point of Gridlock is that you lock the grid of an entire site with smokes and with tracks so that you can go in and plant. That's why she's not really considered a good operator, because we're not in a plant-friendly meta, if that makes any sense. But Cafe, you can actually get the bomb down more times than not with Gridlock. It's a very smoke-friendly map. It's a very flank-heavy map, which means using Gridlock would not be a terrible idea. And overall, executes are a lot better with Gridlock on Cafe than they are on really any other map. Next is Grim, and he's actually such a terrible operator that it's pretty hard to find any maps that he would be good on at all ever. But the one that comes to mind when I think of how Grim should be played is Outback, funny enough, which is also a pretty shitty map. With Outback, everything's really close quarters. It's very hard to get in the building, but because everything's so close quarters, it's also close quarters for defenders, meaning that if you shoot a Grim device anywhere at all in any room in any hallway, it's bound to catch somebody if you know that they're there, making it pretty easy to execute because you have information and they don't. But other than that, I couldn't really find any other map, so Outback is kind of just what you get. Hibana's best map, in my opinion, is going to be Bank, just because there's a lot of hatches that you can get, especially for that basement site, without you having to bring another hard breacher to help you get the hatches open, or without having to bring somebody with hard breaching charges specifically. You can just play Hibana, get every single hatch, and have more hard breaching charges left over to spare if you want to get the wall open to be able to plant, or just to open up some extra sight lines along the way. She also has the 2x scope on a map like Bank that's really long range. The 2x scope is actually pretty good. With flash grenades to help the execute, it's actually pretty good to play Hibana on Bank. Next is Iana, and unfortunately her best map is going to be Coastline just because of her playstyle. She has infinite droning, which is cool for very big range maps like Theme Park or like Bank, which was my initial thought on what her best map should be. But if we go into her actual playstyle, it's very running gun heavy, just like Ashe and Finka, and she has frag grenades for any minimal deployable shields that they have on Coastline, which again is minimal, but still very effective, and I think her ability to get rid of those effective shields is very powerful. Plus she has a 1.5 times scope, which is pretty much perfect for Coastline, so I think that's probably going to be her best map, unfortunately. IQ's best map is going to be Bank because people play Valk the most on Bank, and the only reason you would ever play IQ is for Valkyrie. Maybe Echo, but then again, Echo is really good on Bank too, so I think IQ's best map is just going to have to be Bank. Jackal's best map, in my opinion, is going to be Theme Park. Theme Park is a huge map with a lot of roaming potential. Now, the same could be said for Bank or for Chalet. I just, you know, if you want to pick one of those two, you can, for the exact same reason that I'm picking Theme Park. Theme Park is just a bitch to clear. There's so many rooms, so many corners, and that's even before you get into sight. His shotgun is really good for soft destruction on the roam when you roam clear, so having that on a map like Theme Park where there's a lot of soft destruction is super powerful in my opinion. And you also have claymores for the 2 staircases that you're going to get flanked from, so I think that that again is super powerful. He also has smoke grenades for any smoke plants that you want to do, which is almost needed for every single bomb site on Theme Park if you want to get the bomb down, so I think Jackal is super useful on Theme Park in my opinion. Next is Callie, and in my opinion her best map is probably going to be Coastline, just for the same reason as Glaz. Really, they're kind of the same operator, but specifically on Hookah, whenever you play Callie, you can get rid of that shield shield, or any Azamis or any castle barricades that might be on the hookah site, which are all three very common things to have defenders set up with on that bomb site. So Callie can actually be pretty useful on that bomb site, but that's pretty much it. You could say border, you could say bank, you could say Emerald Plains, but I think that's pretty much it. She's not that good of an operator for mini maps. Next is Lion, and in my opinion, Lion's best map is going to be Cafe. Now, this is actually a super unpopular opinion when it comes to Lion's best map, but let me explain my reasoning. First of all, Lion is really good at roam clearing. He's a roam clearing operator. He's meant to make it to where when you drone at an operator and he runs away, you can scan and you get the information when he's running. Or if he doesn't run away and you scan, you droned him, so you know where the defenders are and you can easily pre-fire them. That's what he's meant to do. That's his entire kit. Now, something that's really good about Cafe specifically is roam clearing is pretty easy, and Lion just makes it easier. You can't really hold on to any floor presence on Cafe for too long without getting completely SWAT Team Seal 6 out of the fucking position that you're in, and if you don't leave, you're pretty much guaranteed to die. Now, the whole thing with Cafe as well is the only way that you're going to win the round on attack and get the bomb down is if you do a site execute. Ying and Lion are both really good for site executes specifically because they help your team get that little wedge they need to get into the defense and pry it open to be able to win the round. So that is why I think Lion's best map is Cafe. Next is Monty, and Monty's best map, in my opinion, is, again, Clubhouse. Now, the reason that Monty's best map is Clubhouse is because there's only really one push that I can think of, and that's either pushing down dirt with Monty to take control like you do with Maverick, or to take rafters with Monty. Now, taking rafters with Monty is super, super easy. You essentially take any gunfight that you would need to have away, and you just walk up the staircase and you push the defender out. And this is really good because if you wait for the wall to get open or you wait for somebody to go behind you, you can easily kill the person that's leaving when you put pressure on them. So in my opinion, Monty's best map is Clubhouse. Nomad's best map, in my opinion, is Consulate. You only really use Nomad for flank or for runouts. Now, there's a lot of runouts on Consulate, but there's also a lot of flank routes because of the amount of staircases that you have. So I think Consulate is definitely Nomad's best map. If you're watching this in Year 8 Season 2, however, Consulate did get reworked, so this may not be the case anymore. I am specifically making this YouTube video for Year 8 Season 1, so this is probably going to be outdated. Next is Osa, and her best map, in my opinion, is Coastline. There is a place where you can push with Osa on every single site for Coastline, where on other maps, you can play Osa really, really effectively, but only maybe for 1 or 2 sites on that map. With Coastline, you can play Osa for almost every single one. You want to push Hookah, go on the Hookah Balk, go to Aqua. You want to push Kitchen, go to Service, go to Reception, go to Sunrise, go to the Kitchen window. You want to push Blue Bar, go Office, go Sunrise, go Kitchen. You want to push Penthouse, go VIP, go 90 Hall, go White Stairs. Rappel on the big window for all I care. You can push with Osa anywhere on Coastline, and that is why it is her best map. Sens' best map, in my personal opinion, is Cafe. Cafe, for the same reason that Gridlock is really good on Cafe, is there's a lot of execute potential, and there's a lot of smoke plant potential compared to any other map. There's a lot of Sens lineups that immediately came out for Cafe compared to any other maps when Sens first came out, and there's a reason for that, because there's a lot of places that you can throw Sens devices without it actually not doing anything. The reason that Sens is a bad operator is because his gadget is really finicky, and the hitbox is really weird, so the smokes never end up actually going where you want them to go. With Cafe, there's a lot of long hallways, open space, and good potential for Sens lineups that actually are pretty good compared to most other maps, in my opinion. For the same reason that Buck is really good on Cafe, I think Sledge's best map is also Cafe. Sledge is really good on Cafe because every single site, except for the 3rd floor site, unfortunately, is able to be played Verdon. Everything is really soft, everything is wooden, so Sledge is naturally really good. But if you want to play Sledge on the 3rd floor site, well, lucky you. Everyone plays Castle on that 3rd floor site, so that's pretty good. Also, there's always barbed wire on the top of red stairs or white stairs, and there's Melusi Banshees everywhere, so being able to play Sledge on Cafe is super, super good. Next is Thatcher, whose best map is going to be Clubhouse, because again, for the same reason that Ace is really good, they have an ability that you can throw. That's long range that you don't really need to put on a wall, which is super powerful for not only Clubhouse, but also because there's a lot of walls that need to be opened. Like I said for Clubhouse when I was talking about Ace, is you need a secondary hard breach for Clubhouse for almost every single site, because there's just that much stuff that needs to be opened. So having a Thatcher and not just EMP grenades is really helpful because of the amount of stuff you have to open. Not only this, but because there's always a Thermite or an Ace, and there's always usually a K-Trick or a Bandit Tricker, Thatcher is just naturally really good on this map. So for many reasons, Thatcher's best map is Clubhouse. For the same reason as Thatcher and Ace, Thermite's best map is going to be Clubhouse again. I know, but again, there's just a lot of walls that you need to get open, and Thermite not only can get walls open very quickly as the quickest hard breacher in the entire game, but he makes really, really big holes, and he's able to hold any area or control he needs to from these holes because he has a 2x scope on his really good gun. So Thermite is just really good on Clubhouse. Twitch's best map, in my opinion, is going to be Cafe. Now, Cafe has a lot of good drone holes, and it has cameras that are easily accessible to a Twitch drone due to its very, very long range. Also, people love to play Wamai on this map. They love to play proximity alarms on this map because of how cramped the staircases are. So Twitch is naturally just really good on this map. You know who else is really good on this map? Mira. And Twitch completely counters Mira. You want to know who's also really meta on this map? Goyo. Twitch completely counters Goyo. So overall, Twitch really shines on this map, and she's actually one of the most banned attackers on this map in competitive play for this exact reason. Ying's best map, in my opinion, is going to be Oregon. Now, there could be a case made for Cafe for the same reason that Lion and Gridlock are really good on Cafe due to their sight executes, but I think it's a little bit too long range for Ying to be able to have her blinds take real full effect. You need a very close range map like Oregon, whose map is really, really close range, really compact. Defenders love to sit in areas, and you can counter this really well with Ying. Ying has one of the highest win percentages on the map of Oregon compared to all of her other maps, but also, if you look at any other competitive team, when they pick between Lion and Ying and they're on the map of Oregon, they typically pick Ying. Canadian, a really good Ying and Lion player, being the prime example of where I got this influence from. Also for ranked, Oregon's really good with Ying because, again, it's close quarters. You can kind of just throw smokes in, throw Yings in, and walk in and not really be punished at all, which is why I think this is her best map for ranked. Zero's best map is Bank, for the same reason that Valkyrie's best map is Bank. You can hide his cameras literally anywhere. It's such a huge map with a lot of like decorations and stuff that you can hide cameras in for flank watch, which is really, really, really good on Bank. Not only this, but he has a 2x scope for a long range map, which Bank is, which is super good, but he also has hard reaching charges. Like we talked about with Hibana, there's a lot of hatches that need to be opened on this map, and a lot of people ban Hibana because of this. But if you want to play somebody that brings really good utility for Bank that also has hard reaching charges for the hatches, Zero is your guy. He also has a Gon 6 for the rare shield that you'll see on the basement site, which is pretty good as well, and that's why I think Zero's best map is Bank. Next is Zofia, and Zofia's best map, in my opinion, is Clubhouse, with a short second place being Oregon. The reason for this being is these two maps have the most amount of utility out of every other map because they're extremely balanced maps, so the only way that people can get ahead is with their utility. Now, Zofia is really good at burning and destroying utility, especially compared to other operators, but also Zofia is really good at solo pushes. She has claymores for her own flank. She can drone herself in and stun any roamers that may be nearby to then clean them up with her two very, very good weapons. So in my opinion, Zofia's best map is Clubhouse. With that out of the way, that's all of the attackers and their best maps. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with anything that I had to say, and while you're down there, sub to the channel down below because I will have the defenders coming out on Wednesday. Like the video if you liked it. My name's Alka, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.